heard. We just ask that you give the actual card to our treasurer, Dr. Rock. Come up to the podium for 3 minutes. Anybody have a card? Dr. Rock, do you have any cards?
No, sir.
Okay. Next on our board agenda, before we get started, I just want to welcome someone that means a lot to me. She came to our board meeting, Deborah Keys Wright. Deborah, if you could stand. Deborah was the former director of the Council Urban Boards of Education on the National School Board Association. Now she's with the Perkins Consulting Group. And Deborah's the one that led the charge to have me be a representative for this district on the Cube. So I thank you, Deborah, and thanks for coming to our board meeting. Next on our board agenda, 1.7 is a presentation by our transportation manager, Elaine Callahan. It's about the new walk zones and what Ms. Callahan had found with her research. If you can come on down, Ms. Callahan, for your presentation. Just give your name and your position.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm Elaine Callahan. I am the transportation supervisor, and I'm here to go over the walk zones that we are re-implementing. So if everyone can take a look up on the screen, the walk zones for the neighboring communities. I contacted all of these communities, and this is the information that I got as to how they're doing their walk zones as far as the mileage and stuff goes. So, okay, that being said, excuse me.
Your mic not be turned on.
So, yeah, so I also like to comment with on Ms. Callahan's statement, is that what she did is an extensive review of what our neighboring districts were doing in reference to busing. Last year, we implemented full busing for high school and pretty much implemented full busing throughout the district. So we had to review that economically and efficiently, review that and see exactly how we can reduce some busing, but maximize and make sure everyone still has opportunity to get to school. So she will be reviewing what other districts do and then what her recommendations are.
Okay, so we're still up here. As you can see, Garfield, K through 8, if you live a mile and a half or less, then you walk. This kindergarten is included. Maple Heights, K through 8, if you live 2 miles or less, then you walk. Shaker, K through 8, 1 mile or less, you walk. Cleveland Heights, K through 5, 1 mile or less walks. The 6th to the 8th grade, 2 miles or less walk. And in Bedford, the kindergartners, 0.7 miles or less walk. 1 to 6, 1st to the 6th grade, 1 mile or less walk. 7th to 8th grade, 1.5 miles or less walk. And the 9th to the 12th grade, 2 miles or less walk. So if you notice, on all of these neighboring communities, none of the high schools are being bused. So obviously, in some of these areas, if you have no sidewalks, then that would alter that. But as long as you have sidewalks, this is what they use. One of the reasons we wanted to implement busing, the walk zone again, was for efficiency, meaning that, you know, it doesn't make sense to pick up students that live across the street from the school, around the corner, or up the street and drop them off. It would also alleviate some of the overcrowding on the buses. Now, that's not to say it's going to alleviate a lot, because there's only a certain area that's going to be affected by this walk zone. So that would allow the drivers to be better able to maintain control with the students that have behavior issues that we have on the buses. So, okay. The next screen is the high school. The areas that are included in the walk zone are actually these streets that are shown up on the screen. That's 1 mile or less. All the other areas for the high school are being bused. So what we did of the students at the north end that are being bused, we tried to develop a couple of cluster stops. So you don't have to stop, say, on Midway. From Midway to Harvard, there are like 8 streets. So to keep from stopping at every corner, we're having a cluster stop. So if you live from Gladstone to Wickfield, you would get on at Wickfield. If you live at Sunset, between Sunset and Harvard, then you would get on at Sunset. So it would only be 2 stops. And that's for the high school. And so at the end, Parkton to Ingleside, if you live Parkton Drive and Glenview Road, you would get on at Parkton and Ridgeton. If you live at Lee Heights and Ingleside, then you would get on at Ingleside. So there are 4 streets over there, but you're only getting on at 2 streets. Warrensville Center, if you live from, it goes from Harvard to Halifax. If you live Ridgewood, Kings Highway, Sunset, and Gladstone, you get on at Sunset. Gladstone, Balfour, Amherst, and Halifax, you get on at Amherst. So Gladstone is on there twice, so you can either get on at Amherst or Sunset for the Gladstone stop, because it's like right in the middle, that street. So the next slide is the middle school, and it's the same, actually it's the same thing. These are all the streets that are affected by the walk zone for the middle school. 1 mile or less, they would be walking. All the other areas will be bused. They have cluster stops for the middle school also, Wickfield to Harvard in that area. The first 4 streets from Wickfield to Gladstone, you get on at Landberry. From Sunset to Harvard, they would get on at Kings Highway. So it would be 2 stops for the middle school. Same thing on the west end. Let me see. Okay, Eastwood. We can go to Eastwood. These are the streets that are affected by the walk zone. Just these streets. Westwood, you go to the next page. These are the streets that are affected by the walk zone for Westwood. 1 mile or less, they would be walking. And the last one is John Dewey, and there we're going to bus the kindergartners and the first graders, so there will be no walk zone for the John Dewey. The kindergartners and the first graders will get a bus. So, does anyone have any, there's a state minimum for the walk zone up to 2 miles. So we are in compliance with that, so.
Mr. Jolly, did you want to add anything?
Oh, well, historically, the area over where Shakerwood and Gladstone, they never got buses. So we're the first group to bus high school students from over there. They all walked. In other areas, it's traditionally where walkers are coming from. We were very cognizant of the younger kids to make sure they all on the bus, K to 1. Make sure they catch a bus. And then it's just people who are close to the school that we are proposing that they become walkers to our various different schools. So carefully, Elaine and her team looked at all the various areas. They drove them in their cars to ensure that they were longer than or the area. And again, looking at what the other people are doing in the area, Bedford, the Shakers, the people who are connected to us, we are far below what any of them are doing in busing our students. So we're doing more than what the state minimum is, but again, it's to get kids in school on time and to ensure that everyone is safe.
Any questions for Ms. Callahan Board about the walk zones and how they're trying to streamline our busing? Do you have any questions for her at all? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a
Ms. Gator.
quick question, because it wasn't mentioned in your slide. What about the Highland Hills area? So like you've got, I know it is Brick City. I don't know what the actual
Brick
name
City?
of it. What's the name
It's
of it?
right off of Harvard.
Randolph and Harvard, all of them walk.
Patterson. So like would the students from Eastwood that live over there, do you know where the apartments?
Oh, yeah. That's
So-
between Northfield off of Harvard.
Yeah, correct, Northfield and Warrensville Center Road. So if they're going to Eastwood,
So they're walkers.
and now what about from there up to the middle school?
Walkers.
They would be so that's less than a mile?
That's less than a mile.
Yeah.
All right.
You get into a mile when you get toward Ridgeton and
Bridgeton?
Yeah,
and Sunset.
and Wickfield, over in that area, Wickfield and Midway. That's
So,
a
but
mile.
Bridgeton starts at a mile.
So actually, Ridgeton is shorter than a mile, but we didn't want to send a bus over there. And so everyone, because we coming down Midway anyway, so anybody on there, that's why we put the cluster stops.
Right.
So they all could be picked up in that area.
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next on our board agenda is our superintendent updates. Mr. Jolly's going to start off with his updates, and then he has our business affairs manager, David Boyer. But
We're going to start with the cheerleaders. If we can have
I'm
Coach-
sorry, cheerleader.
Yeah, we can have Coach Nikki come up, please.
1.8 is for our cheerleaders.
I guess we'll pass them off to
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, our school board wanted to recognize our cheerleaders. Our cheerleaders have done an outstanding thing. They placed first in the national cheerleading competition. It is so important that we recognize the greatness of Coach Nikki and the work and time she puts in with our scholars. All summer they're working at nighttime. They're here at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I think this is our first time publicly recognizing her and her work. But the board wanted to make sure that this year that you and your team got the recognition that you're due. So without further ado, we would like to recognize the team that's
Bring
here.
up your cheerleaders.
So everyone is not here tonight because some of my girls play softball and they had a game in Lorraine. So they're committed to their next team already. So they just want you to introduce yourselves.
Kalea Brown,
Destiny Robinson,
Say your grade too.
11th grade.
12th grade. Brittany Haywood, 11th grade.
Brashay Turnage, 12th grade.
I'm representing Catrice McNair, 10th grade.
So we have awards for all your certificates for all the members. So first is Chanel Mason. Taylor Booz. Catrice McNair. Asia Blue. Brashay Turnage. Kalia Brown. Brittany Hayward. Amari Twyman. Destiny Robinson. Coach Ziegler. And Assistant Coach Kreider. All right, we want to get everybody up here so we can take a picture. Get a picture. Okay.
Parents, y'all might y'all get on up.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to recognize what we do. This has been a fun season, nothing but smile. And I thank you for supporting us and just taking the chance to recognize and seeing what we do. Thank you.
Come on, parents.
The team also will be recognized at the next city council meeting. So Mayor Sellers and Warrensville City Council will be recognizing the team at the first meeting in May.
Also, I just want to state that this cheerleading squad, couple members different. Last year, they won a national championship too. Coach Nikki took that team. So great job you're doing with those scholars. I appreciate it. Give them a hand.
Thank you, team. We appreciate you.
Board, did you want to say anything about cheerleaders at all? Go right ahead.
I just want to say something to the parents. As a former cheerleading mom, I know the dedication that it takes to come out to all the games and sit there and watch your girls cheer. You're cheering them on while they're cheering. So I want to take my hats off to you, give you an applause for supporting your students. So thank you.
All right, next on our board agenda is 1.9, Superintendent Updates. Superintendent Jolly will give his updates, and then our Business Affairs Manager, David Boyer, will come up and speak to the school dude. Superintendent Jolly?
Yes, good evening.
Good
evening. I just have a couple announcements to make, and I would like to then yield to Mr. Boyer. For the community, May 4th will be Career Day here at the high school. But also May 4th, we will have a Career and College Readiness Signing Day. On that day, all our seniors will be signing commitment letters to either the colleges or whatever career that they have. It should be an exciting event. It's the first time we ever did it, so all the students will be signing. Sort of like when you see a student, when you see the guys for football and they signing their scholarships. That's what we're trying to stimulate. I would like to give kudos to Mr. Reynolds for an outstanding idea, because even if you're not playing Division I basketball or football, wherever you go, it's important, and all the students are making a difference in their families, and that is something that we want to recognize and celebrate. So May 4th, we're inviting the community to come see. I believe it's 9 a.m.
It's 10 to 12.
10 to 12 here at the high school. Along that day, we will have a career day. I saw the list of alumni and various different community people that would be part of the career day, and they'll be coming into our classroom, spreading uplift and cheer and wisdom to our young people to demonstrate that, hey, you could come from Warrensville Heights and be great, and that's what we know, that all people from here are great. So we invite the community to come to career day and to the signing of all the students. I also like to announce May 14th is the senior breakfast. Great event. Miss McNair, she just went out the door. She's been doing it for years. This year we have a special twist to the senior breakfast. The alumni of Tennessee State has volunteered to help serve. So we will have the alumni of Tennessee State here to help serve our students. Also, I'd like to just recognize the senior class this year and the great work that they've done. For the first time I can ever remember as a principal or a student, the senior dues are only $10. Yeah. $10.
It worked.
There's no reason everybody can't go, because it's $10. I just want to just commend the work of the senior class advisor, Ms. Freeman, and the seniors, because they work. This is a great senior class. I mean, the efforts that they put in collectively to ensure that they raise the money, to ensure that all their classmates could be participants. I just could say in my 21 years of being an educator, I've never seen senior dues that low, ever. They always 100, 150, 200, 225. Never the collective effort that this group has done, from fundraisers at BW3 to Chipotle to everything.
Watches.
They done watches, and they started actually like 3 years ago, working toward this. So I commend them, and I can see the other classes starting to get excited and start to do the work. You guys have set a hard standard, a great standard to follow. Also, May 15th will be our first community meeting for Phase 2. So Phase 2 of the construction project, the first community meeting will be May 15th. At this meeting, they will discuss the scope of the project. Dr. Rock will discuss the bond issue and how it affect homeowners on an individual basis and so forth. And they would discuss LFIs, which are local funded initiatives. These are things that the base cost of the building, and these are extras that we are going to ask the community to look at and decide what do they want to add to the building. So that's May 15th. We'll be sending out text messages and emails about that. May 16th is the STEAM Fair. The STEAM Fair will be here at the high school, K to 12. So it'll be kids from all our schools there participating. May 21st is our high school graduation, which will be here at the high school. The plans at this time is to have it on the football field, which I believe is the first time ever to have it on the football team, on the football field. In the event of rain, they have a contingency plan to bring it inside the auditorium. We did graduate in the auditorium, I think 3 years ago, so it's not like we haven't done it before. But the plan is for good weather, for us to do it outside and make this a memorable graduation. You got a question? Uh-huh. Okay, so we only get 5 tickets. I don't know all the details. We'll follow up with the details. Mr. Reynolds will follow up with the details. I believe if it's outside, though, there'll be a lot more tickets available if it's outside. Yep. So, again, that's May 21st. We're asking that it's going to be a great night. We are claiming 75-degree weather that night, and we're claiming it. We're claiming it. Because, look, in order to get out the box, you got to do out-the-box stuff. We can no longer stay in a box and say, well, we couldn't do it, what happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 15. We got to do new things. In order to get our kids to think new and different, we got to do new things. So I think that what we've been doing these last 2.5 years is bringing new things to the table to get our kids to think different, because they can be different and achieve whatever they set their mind to. So this is an example. This senior class who put their heart and mind to this, and they got $10 thing. They having their graduation here on the football field. People do have it on the football field. Maple had theirs, I think, last year on the football field. Yeah. Other schools do. It's time for Warrensville to step up and do some out-the-box things. Also, on Saturday, we have our Healthy Paws Community Walk. This is in partnership with Ohio University and South Point Hospital. I think right now we got over 70 people registered. How many registered? Over 200 is registered. It's free. We want everybody to come. There'll be giveaways, water bottles, T-shirts, free to the community. A nice walk for the community. And last but not least, I just wanted to, it was a paper outside. It was called the Ohio Mid-Size Urban Districts position paper. I just wanted to go through this real briefly with the community so that people understood or can understand what some of the work that this board is doing and I'm doing to position our district to avoid House Bill 70, which is the school takeover bill. And we are, and I can say this, and the students in the school can attest, I think our kids were really doing their best on our test this year. From my observation, everyone's working hard and doing their best. But for those that don't know, about 3 years ago, the state of Ohio passed the law. It was really geared toward Youngstown. It was called the Youngstown Plan. But basically what it was a school takeover law in which they stated that if a school district has 3 or more Fs, consecutive Fs, that the state would take it over. What a state takeover means is that this local school board becomes null and void, where they still be in place, but they won't have any authority. And then they will be assigned a CEO. The CEO would then have control over this entire school district, and also would have the ability to nullify contracts. So that means union contracts also. So basically, in essence, what it does is it takes away local control of a school district. The community is not in charge of the school district. The state becomes in charge of the school district. Now, some people say that's a good idea, but if you study any history of anything, state, with outside people coming to your community, they have no stake and they don't care, and they end up destroying it. That's just history. You could go back and anybody want to get history and research, I can provide it for you. But it's not a good thing for local communities. And also, you know, it's targeted at largely minority districts in the state. The documentation clearly states that. So we are in a real fight. We've put a lot of great things in place to ensure that our kids do well. It's indicated in our third grade scores, up 11% mid-year. We anticipate that to be probably up 20-25% at the end of the year. Last year, across the board, we did great things. So we anticipate and hope that we put in the right work, that our kids would do well on the test. But as everyone in here know, a test does not measure us as people or individuals. You just don't. Just because you can pass the test and not pass the test does not mean that you are not a valued person. But that's where it is now. I mean, the game is that people's value is being attested to how they take a test. Fair or not, us older people didn't have to pass a test to graduate. I mean, if you graduated before, 1994, 95, you didn't have to pass a test to graduate. All you had to do is get credits. You got your credits, and you had all the opportunity in the world to make a difference. Didn't hinder any of us. It didn't make us bad or anything. But you got to look at the bigger picture. There's a play in this world to maintain some division amongst people, and this is part of it. So with that, I just wanted to let the community know about the mid-sized urban district collaborative. And what it is it's a group of about 11 school districts throughout the state, ranging from Lima, Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio, all the way down to North College Hill in Cincinnati area, Mount Healthy, who all came together to work together to ensure that no districts go into academic distress or fall into that. So with that, we today met with the state superintendent, and we shared with him our plan. I just want to review our plan real briefly so that everyone's clear on what but what we propose is that our districts do a peer-to-peer professional development model. What that means is that if the state of Ohio has like 612 school districts in the state of Ohio, there's probably about 22 that have the similar demographics to us. So when you look at the whole state, the other 580 do not have some of the same issues that we have. So collaborating with them in a lot of cases will not address some of the concerns we have, like high mobility rate. You know, we have a high instances of poverty in our district. We have a lot of different issues that hurt student achievement. But when we collaborate with districts that are similar, everyone is dealing with the same issue, and many of them have solutions that, unless you in a room with them, you're not going to get the solution, because sometimes your neighbor around here don't deal with the same things you deal with. So what it is, the peer-to-peer model is that, you know, we sit together, we plan things out together and look at each other's best practices and see how it can benefit us all. We also ask for fair measures. So if anybody know anything about the report card, all most people see is A, B, C, D, and F. But inside that report card is a whole bunch of stuff that's not fair, that is not just as black and white as A, B, C, D, and F. There's one measure called the gap closing measure, in which they rank each group, subgroup, and that means race, that means economically disadvantaged, special ed, and they give them all different targets. So in our case, and then they have an all-student target. I think I talked about it before. They have an all-student target. So the all-student target is when you have a diverse district. And be honest, that district is a majority white district. So that target would be, I'll just give an example, 65%. So each other subgroup, so your special ed students have a subgroup, and their target might be 40%, and African American might be 45%, and the economically disadvantaged might be 46%. You can hit all your targets and still get an F on the report card. You can hit every one and get an F. But those are the things that are not explained to the public. So the public think, oh, they just failing all the kids, and we could be growing our kids 10%, but we didn't meet that target, because the reason they have those different measures, because there's a historical understanding that people score different on tests. I mean, that started when they started testing in 1972 with the NAEP test. It started there, and there was always been a disparity in how people score. So when they set these targets, that's how they are met. And then the final thing we ask for is a instructional rounds. It's almost like when the doctors go around to each room and all the doctors diagnose what's wrong, and then they talk about it and come up with solutions. So in collaboration with the peer-to-peer model, we want to do an instructional round model where all 11 districts then go into each other, have frank and honest conversations for improvement. Out of lenses from people from all different areas to try to help people rectify and fix whatever the issues are. So I think we have a solid plan. We did present it to the state superintendent, and we hope to hear back from him soon. So if you read the paper, I did leave copies for everyone to read, so you can read through it. And if you have any questions, you can call me or email me or talk to me anytime about it, and I can explain in detail. But I would say that this board is really very active, and it should be outside on the table. Very active and working to ensure that Warrensville is represented on a state level and that our interests are heard by everybody. And once we get out of this situation, I think we're going to be a model for all school districts in the state of Ohio because of the things that our principals and teachers are doing on a daily basis. So any questions before I have Mr. Boyer come down? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, career fair. Also, it's a career fair by parent engagement. Danielle Smiley, May 3rd at South University. May 3rd, I think 10 a.m.? 10 to 1. For parents, and students, May 3rd at South University. And it's for anybody, so even people with felonies are welcome. I'm pretty sure last year I went to the fair, they probably had about 20 different job offerings there, and I believe they probably would match that or exceed that at this meeting on the 3rd. And that concludes my report. Any questions? I know I had a lot, but I do want people to read this this paper so you have a clear understanding of where we are.
Mr. Boyer. Go right ahead.
Thank you, President Freeman. Members of the board, Mr. Jolly, Dr. Rock, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Over the last couple months, there's been numerous questions about facility usage. So I wanted to clear up some and share some information tonight with you as to how we go about assigning different groups to the different categories that we have. What you see up on the screen now is our facility schedule as approved by the Board of Education. And we basically break organizations down into 3 groups. Group 1, you go to the next slide, gentlemen. If you look at Group 1 is inter-district activities, things that go on in our buildings, for our buildings, by our students or by our various groups. It could be our athletic teams or different student organizations within the district, PTOs, boosters, the Alumni Association, those kinds of groups that exist for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of our scholars. And the fee structure for them is pretty simple. There is no fee as long as staff is on duty and the buildings are open. We ask that these groups try their best to schedule things during hours when custodians are on duty so that we don't have to incur hard costs. And you'll see as kind of a theme through this whole thing is our goal is to recover our hard costs more than anything. Okay, and our hard costs are, in this case, mostly our personnel. Okay, we don't have systems in our current buildings that shut down the HVAC at night. If it's cold, our heat's on. So we're not really spending any extra money for someone to be in the building with heat or lighting and those kinds of things isn't a big cost. So we consider those at this time to be soft costs. That could change in the future with our new buildings, but right now that's what we have. So Group 2 encompasses a lot of different areas of the community. Okay, local city uses, recreation, scout groups, board candidate nights, local sports leagues, that's your Little League, your basketball leagues, all of those kinds of things, civic organizations, the various church groups that use our facilities, those kinds of things, or organizations like the Red Cross or the police or the municipalities or the Tri-City or Tri-C training, those kinds of things. Those are groups that are active in our community, and they benefit the district in a lot of ways by coming into our schools and interacting with our scholars and our staff and stuff. So we give them the benefit of not having any rental fees. So if they're going to use a facility, say on a Saturday, and you'll see in a minute what our rental fees are, but for example, our gymnasium, we charge $60 an hour for the gymnasium at the high school, okay, for a group, for the group 3 organizations. In group 2, they don't pay those rental fees, but they do have to cover, again, the hard costs. If they're using it on a Saturday or a Sunday or at a time when there is no staff scheduled, or if the event is such that we have to bring additional staff on than would normally be there, we charge $45 an hour for custodians, $35 an hour for security, and that's per person that we have to put on to support the event. Our AV staff at $20 per hour, and if nutrition services is required, and that is required if they're using the kitchen, and that's $30 an hour. But again, there are no rental fees charged for these groups, because in most cases, these groups encompass our scholars. We look for a 60% utilization by our scholars in the organization. And again, a lot of that we have to take people on their word. If they tell us that 90% of their kids are from us, there's never a good way to really check to see how many of them are from here or how many might be from Shaker or Beechwood or whatever, but we get a pretty good feel for the groups over the years, because pretty much we have the same groups use our facilities on a regular basis. Group 3 is athletic camps with less than 60% Tri-City enrollment. Local city employees, that's somebody who just wants to come in and say do a family reunion or some other activity that has nothing to do with the district really. Commercial entertainment, recitals from the YMCA or dance groups or those kinds of things that aren't related to our scholars, private parties and by for-profit organizations, and then other groups and organizations that aren't otherwise classified typically fall into this group. And this group that pays the rent. These are the folks that when they come in, we charge them $60 an hour for the gym. In most cases. There are exceptions to that. Occasionally there's a judgment call made depending on how it's going to affect the district and what the district gets out of it. In other words, in some cases, a group may come in and put on an activity, say a basketball camp or something like that. And our scholars, our wrestling team or our football players or our cheerleaders or somebody runs the concessions for that event. It could be an event that's going to bring 500 people in, and the concessions for those are huge. So that helps our scholars to be able to capitalize on that. So we want those kind of groups to come in, because that's how we get to where we only have to pay $10 for dues for the senior class, is through those kinds of activities. So we want to encourage them to come in. And you'll see in a minute how these fees affect how our facilities are used and by which groups. This year for 2017-18 school year, and that's July 1 through June 30th, we've had 40 facility use requests by outside groups. That is generated, or will generate when we're done in July, or at the end of June, $8,950. We've had 37 Group 2 requests. Now remember, this is the group that just pays the hard costs. In many cases, if they're using our facilities on a weeknight, there's no cost to them at all. We've had 3 Group 3 requests where we've actually had to charge them rent to use them. So you can see the difference. When we're not charging rent, people are anxious to use our facilities, which is a good thing, because it's our community. We want them to come into our buildings. We want them to see what's going on. That's how we gain the support of the community, is through them being able to come in and use our facilities and be around our scholars and do things for the community and use us as a resource. The Group 3 folks, like I said, we've had 3 that have signed up. We've actually had more requests than that, but they've all been canceled because of the fees. We have 1 right now that's outstanding for July. Their fees are going to be $3,000 something, and we aren't sure yet that they're going to go forward with that one. So we counted it in the total because it's on the books right now, but they're going back and forth with whether or not they're going to be able to afford to come in and do their program in our schools. And that's okay. If they want to go somewhere else, that's all right. But you know, it's a lot of money to rent our facilities, and for a full day or for a full weekend, it gets pretty expensive at $60 an hour. So. Next slide. When I started here, the district had a project on the books that was to automate this process, because right now the process is you go online to the business services webpage and you download a form and you print it out and you fill it out by hand, and then it takes its way slowly through the process. We do email it, we scan it and send it to everywhere it needs to go, but it takes up a lot of time and a lot of resources to process these. So the district had purchased a facility scheduling program or platform to automate this. The company is called School Dude, and the product is Facilities Direct, FS Direct. So I've spent the better part of this past year working to get this thing up and running. It's a huge program. There's a lot of information that has to be put in, and every piece of data that you put in, the next piece depends on it. So it's very important that you get it right the first time. Otherwise, it's very expensive to go back and change. So we're at a point where we're getting ready to launch this in the next week. So I wanted to show you a little bit what it looks like. In the previous slide that was up there, when someone goes to our website now to schedule for facility use or put in a request, they'll log in, they'll sign up and they'll log in, and they'll come to a screen that looks like this. They'll click on whichever type of schedule they want to do, the normal schedule or a recurring schedule or an irregular schedule. They can click on any of those and they can put in the dates and times and all of that for whatever it is they want to do. The next page will show you what that application process looks like and all the information they have to put in the next 3 slides. And they put in information about the areas, the buildings that they want to use, the dates and times, how many people are going to be there, just all the information that we need and that we use to make a determination of which one of these groups do they fall in, okay? And what kind of resources are they going to take from the district in order to put on their event? Are they going to need chairs and tables? Are they going to need additional staffing? Are we going to need security? Just a whole myriad of things. Are they going to need audio visual or IT support? Any of those things we're in a position to help them with for a price, basically. So they go through and they fill this out, and then once they submit it, the entire process from that point on is driven by email. As soon as they hit submit, the request goes out to the building principal or the individual building office, where they receive it, they look at it, they weigh that against their schedule, determine if the facility can be utilized for what is being requested on the date that's being requested. And once it goes through the entire process, as they approve it, it goes on to my office for approval, and then it goes out to everybody that has to be involved in this, whether the custodial staff will get an email telling them that they need to schedule and plan to be there to have the building open and what time. The IT staff will get an email saying what is needed from them. Security, the same thing. And it's all instantaneous. It all happens automatically through the system. And it seems pretty simple, but as I mentioned earlier, all the information, anybody that's ever worked with a database knows that a database is only good as the information that goes into it and the consistency of it. So once it's all approved, you get an approval like this. And I took the event title out of this one just because I didn't want to put that up for everyone to see what it was. But this is something that's going on this week on Friday the 27th. And it's going to be happening at the high school in the gym from 3:30 to 9, and it has been approved, and it's in the system, and it's on a calendar. And now, instead of when I go in and I want to rent the high school gym on Friday night from 4 to 6, if I go in there and I click on it and I try to do that, it's going to tell me, before I even go through the process of putting in the thing, that it's not available, that it's already being used. Okay, and I can click on that, I can see what's going on, so I can see if what I'm doing could go along with it or could complement whatever's happening there, which isn't very likely. But the point is that now we get immediate feedback. The way we're doing it now, just finding that out can take days. because an email has to go out to the building to find out if they have anything on their schedule. We have to check our schedule. We have to check the athletic schedule. A lot of people have to get involved, and in this way, everybody can see the same information all the time. So, where are we at with the project? The project today, School Dude was uploading the last and mapping the final data set that'll make this whole thing work. We'll be sending out information tomorrow and Wednesday to our staff and down in the buildings, principals and secretaries, to make sure that they know that it's coming and how to use it once they start getting the emails. And it's a very simple process. You get an email, you click on the link, it opens up the request, you look at the date and what they're wanting to do, and you say yes or no. And as soon as you hit yes or no and hit submit, it goes on to the next person that has to approve it. It's a pretty simple process. Once I am confident that the staff down at the building level have the information that they need to be able to do that, then we're going to post the link on our website and we'll be live. And we'll start entering them. I've already entered ones that are going on from probably about 2 weeks ago up until the end of this year. All the requests that we have are already in the system and have already been approved, like the one I just showed you a minute ago. So we're ready to go with this, and I think it'll be a good thing. The other thing that this will also do for us is it also sets us up, and I did set this up with this in mind. They also have a automated maintenance management system that goes along with this. And the tasks and needs or work orders that come out of a facility use form will automatically flow into that. So that when you click on you need a custodian, you need tables and chairs, a work order is automatically generated and sent to the appropriate people that need to make that happen. So we'll be looking at implementing that coming up in the future to help us streamline our work order process and our preventative maintenance in the district. So that's our next step.
Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Boyer about automated usage of School Dude?
Anyone have any questions?
No, go ahead.
So first I want to thank you, because this was something that was brought to my attention back in July, that we had purchased this in 2016, and for whatever reason we weren't able to get it uploaded. I think that it's going to ultimately help us to streamline the process. So the question that I have is this: are you able to override costs when, say for instance, someone enters their information and it comes up with a cost of say $500? Do you have the capability to override that?
I do.
Okay, so I looked at the spreadsheet that was sent to us. I guess my only concern would be the fact that my hope is that we will remain consistent with how we're charging individuals, so that we don't have people coming to board meetings upset because someone's getting charged and someone else isn't getting charged. So that would be my only question or concern, is, how do we avoid doing that? How do we ensure that if someone says that they're, a nonprofit organization, that we're truly a nonprofit organization, and this is the fee schedule?
The nice thing about the system is all the fields that I showed you on the application that was up there can be forced. And there is a section there for nonprofit. If they click on and say that they're a nonprofit, then it forces them to put their identifier in.
Tax ID number?
Their tax ID number.
Okay.
And name what their nonprofit is, what their status is. Okay, and then we can check on that.
Okay.
Once we have that number, we can verify if they're a nonprofit or not.
Okay.
The other thing that it does is it consistently applies the charges. So I have to, and I am the one that can do this. No one else has the override capability but me in the system. Okay, so it will be a conscious decision. It's not that I have to go in and add the charges. The charges are automatically applied. If I go in there, if they put in there that they need custodial services, and I look at the group and I say, well, I think they need 2 for this, because they're going to have 500 people there, then it automatically applies charges for those people, okay? And for me to change that or to eliminate those charges, I have to go in and delete those. I have to override those and waive it, all right? So I'm not just going to do that. It's not going to be that they don't get charged because I didn't have time to put it in. It's already in there, and I have to take the time to go in and waive those charges. So there's going to be a pretty good reason why we're doing that if we are doing it. And again, we always try to cover our hard costs on these things, okay? And the only exception to that really is when it's a group one and it's a district event on a Saturday or a Sunday, like the basketball playoffs, okay, or something like that. We're not going to charge, even though they're using the facility when a custodian is not normally scheduled, we're not going to charge them because it's our scholars, it's our athletes, and it's our program, okay? But other organizations that use our district outside of normal hours pay the hard costs. And really, they're pretty reasonable. $45 an hour for a custodian is very, very reasonable. And we do adjust that for holidays because their rate is adjusted on holidays per the contract. So we clarify that with people. And that's also a manual entry that I would do for a holiday. We didn't put that into the system because I didn't want it to automatically calculate that for holidays. But we do have some Monday use when, like President's Day and those kinds of things where we have the city puts on a basketball program for our scholars. Gives them something to do and keeps them off the streets, and you know, it helps out our kids. So, so we try to give them every break we can, but we still have them cover at least the hard costs.
All right.
So,
I have two more quick questions. So if someone decides that, let's just say, does it automatically approve, give them an approval, or do they have to accept the cost first, I guess? So I guess probably, I'm sorry. If they hit submit, then that means that they've agreed to it,
yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
So what happens if you don't get the deposit within a certain amount of time?
Then we cancel the event and we tell them they can't use it.
So do we send out a formal letter or something?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes,
All
we
right.
go in the system and we cancel it, which automatically sends an email out canceling it.
Okay.
And I would follow up that with an email to those individuals telling them that they, because of non-payment, they're not able to use it. Unless they've made other arrangements with us, which doesn't happen very often. Again, we'd like to get our money up front. It's been proven over and over that it's difficult to get it after the fact. So we do require people to pay up front for the facility use. There's been occasion where it's been a large amount and we've allowed someone to make 50% deposit and pay the other half after they get the proceeds from whatever they're doing.
Okay.
But again, that's very rare. And as you can see, we don't have a ton of usage.
Yeah.
40 groups in a year is not a lot.
I think 7 of them, from what I saw, were paying individuals, so.
Right.
One final question, and actually this is for Mr. Jolly. So some of these are athletic events. So I'm wondering about the liability insurance. Is that something that you can look into with the board's attorney? Are we liable if somebody gets hurt and the organization that's sponsoring it does not have their own insurance? What's the liability for
I
the
could answer
district?
that.
Can you answer?
Yes.
The question's for you.
I can. First of all, we're always liable. Even if they have insurance, we're liable.
Okay.
When people sue, they sue everybody in the chain, okay? And we have deep pockets from their perspective. So to think that anything that we do, whether it's a hold harmless agreement or them having their own insurance, is going to keep us from being liable, that's a fallacy. You're kidding yourselves. The reality is that we're always liable. Now, it does mitigate it to some degree if they have insurance, and we try to push people to have insurance. However, we do get the Monday night men's basketball group, or the city police officers that come in and play basketball, or this and that. And these guys don't go out and buy insurance to come in here. So we waive that requirement, but we have everybody on the team sign a hold harmless agreement and hold the district harmless, okay? And they're instructed, they receive instruction that anything that happens, any injuries, whether it be a twisted ankle or a rope burn or a rug burn from sliding on the floor, they need to report it so that we know what's happening, what's going on. And we watch those things pretty closely. So you're never going to mitigate all of your liability at all, but everybody's sue happy these days, and they'll sue you if they get a chance. But we try not to rent to people that we think, or to allow people to do high-risk things that we think are going to be an issue. We kind of watch it that way.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Now, we do have the ability through the system to force people to have insurance if we want to do that, but that would eliminate a lot of the folks that come in and use our facilities from the community as well. So I don't know that we want to do that. I think the way we've been managing it has been effective, and we have, knock on wood, we haven't had any issues yet.
We've had a few, but
Yeah.
but yeah, again, as long as we're fair and equitable in how we are issuing fees.
This will actually help us do that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Board, is there any other questions for Mr. Boyer, though? Go ahead, Vice President.
I only have one question. Will this system be used to manage our sport events as well? So if things are on our calendar, does that get entered first so that there's no bumps?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer.
Thank you.
Next on our board agenda is the consent treasurer's report and financial recommendations. Treasurer Dr. Rock, the floor is yours.
Please take that and sit down.
Okay. So for tonight, I wanted to, it was requested to review the title funds, state and federal funds. The title funds are state and federal funds that are restricted for certain expenditures or uses for such programs such as special education, Title I, early childhood special education. So Title I is targeted assistance for academic achievement in reading and math. The district has an allocation just over $1 million, $1,091,837, and that includes a $189,000 carryover from the prior year. So in other words, $189,000 wasn't spent in the prior year, so it gets to be carried over to the new budget. The budget includes instruction, professional development, family, community, computer-assisted learning, pull-out and in-class instruction, and reduced class size, to help you reduce your class size. The next one is school improvement, sub-A, and this allocation for this year is $23,575, and the budget includes professional development. The next fund is Title IIA. This is for high-quality teachers. This is for teachers to improve their professional development and teaching styles. The allocation is $111,000. The budget includes professional development, training, and reduction of class size. The next fund is Title III, and we have this through a consortium, and this is for language instruction for English learners. A lot of times it's called the limited English, and this allocation is $1,900. Again, that one goes through the consortium. That allocation does not touch the school district's books. The next fund is Title IVA. This is for student support and academic enrichment. The allocation for this year is $16,368. The budget includes safe and healthy students to prevent bullying, school positive behavioral interventions, instructional materials, and purchase services. The next fund is IDEA. This is a large fund that's for special education. The allocation for this year is $544,000. The budget includes education for children with disabilities and related services, which also covers speech, audio, therapist, evaluation, purchase services, training software, licenses, meetings, the consultant, family, community, purchase services. The next fund is ECSE, which is Early Childhood Special Education. For this year, it's $12,410, the allocation, and this is being utilized for instructional materials, educational materials, and meeting expenses. The next fund is SI 1003, which is school improvement. The allocation for this year is $143,224. Budget includes professional development, purchase services, base plus supplemental funding, and data use capacity improvement. The next one is High Schools That Work, which is HSTW. And the allocation there is $5,000, and that's for maximizing academic achievement in core subjects of reading and math, professional development, and purchase services. And that concludes all of the state and federal funds that are on our books and the allocations that we get for this year. Then I wanted to give you an update on the recent conference that I attended, which is the OASBO Annual Conference. This is the conference for all school treasurers and school business officials throughout the state of Ohio. It stands for Ohio Association of School Business Officials. It provides continuing education and current topics, and also provides the required investment continuing education credits, which is also called CPIM. Center for Public Investment Management through the Ohio Treasurer's State. Every school treasurer has to have at least 6 credits every year if you were going to be investing for the district, which we have. Some of the classes that I went to, again, as I was delegated at the board meeting not too long ago to do the public records training and sunshine law, so we're covered for the new board members that we have here. And of course, the board members could go to that training anytime you want. It's free, but it's better to be covered because the auditors come in and they look at that whenever you have a change in board members or re-elections. They consider that a new term, and you still have to go to the training. Also went to the economic outlook, which was very interesting. This is on the total United States economy. We were looking at the federal debt levels, which is really big numbers in the trillions. They're also looking at the federal interest rates, where there's going to be 4 times that the interest rates will rise, and we're starting to see that in our interest revenue. And then they also looked at historical analysis, so that was very interesting. Also, the tax reform on bond finance, and this was put on by our municipal fund advisor, Cecina and Associates. And the important thing to see here is what the tax reform by Trump that just came in. One of the disadvantages to school districts when it comes to bond financing is that it changed the law on advanced refundings. Now, someone will say, well, what's an advanced refunder? So if you had a bond and interest rates were going down, it's sort of like your house, where you go and you refinance your house. You're like, oh, if we refinance, our payment's going to be lower, and we're going to save money. So school districts have been taking advantage of this. And the advance refunding is when it's an opportunity to refund before the bond is callable. So now they've eliminated that, so you can't refund before the call. And you have to structure your bond properly in order to take advantage of those calls. So now, when bonds are coming out, they're trying to put in 3-year, 5-year calls. But then when you put in those calls, it's going to cost. Everything has a cost. So, and it'll affect your interest rate. So that is the new law, and that's how it's affecting school districts. So, we will have to take a look at this also. And the call options, you have to set this all at the inception of the bond. So it was pretty technical, but it was a good hot topic. And again, this is going to impact us because we are going to have a bond coming up. So we're going to have to analyze the cost-benefit analysis of having those calls, because we can't do advanced refunders anymore. In other words, before you were able to do it without having you could do it before the call. They allowed you to do one advance refunder, which this school district did. We had a refunder, and we've saved money on it. We're enjoying the fruits of that labor now, and we're going to apply it into our new financing. So we were able to do it, but now it's not going to be an option anymore. Another conference that I went, another seminar was the bond process and interest rates and the trend on bond ratings. What was great here is the trend on bonds is trending towards 3.75 to 4% and similar rating that we had. And on our COPS deal, we landed at 3.57, which was even better. So you can see, hey, we landed really good, and we did this at good timing. Municipal fund advisor kept repeating this to us. Well, here's the factual data right now. Also, I put a shout out. I was in a presentation with Squire Patton Boggs Legal Update, so we got some advertisement there for the treasurer from Warrensville Heights being in the presentation. And then also another course was the Investments Horizon and best practices. Right now, Star Ohio is at 1.81, and we're enjoying that. But there's also another star, it's called Star Plus, and I will look into getting us into this. It has been lagging in return because it was based on CD rates, and right now CD rates are a lot lower, whereas the regular Star Ohio is based on agencies, municipalities, and most importantly, commercial paper, which has a higher yield. But what they're doing now is for Star Plus, they're offering 1.9 on the first $2.5 million that you invest. So that's some low-hanging fruit for us to get 9 more basis points. So I'll be checking into that, and that'll be to be continued. And then also they talked about short-term and investable funds and the 80% rule. saying that, okay, if this is the box of funds that you want to invest, it's good, it's better to be conservative and invest about 80% of it, which is, we follow that, we're very conservative. And then there was a lot of discussion on commercial paper. The next topic is real estate tax revenue for the district. Happy to present good news to the district. We're returning to our historical revenue. And compared to our October projection, again, we were being conservative. We're going to be about $1.5 million above the projection. Now, you want to be above, you want it to go that way. You don't want it to be, hey, we're projecting this and now it's coming in lower. And the reason for that is we were coming out of some major items. Two of them were extremely major. We had 2 exemptions in the school district to the tune of about $60 million. So our tax valuation went down $60 million. It went from 380 to 320, okay? So we had that happening, and we also had to pay $2 million of refunds last year. Now you'll say, well, we didn't go down $2 million. Well, we didn't go down $2 million because as those exemptions came off, the delinquencies came off, and we had a substantial amount of increase in people that paid up their delinquency taxes. So in other words, they paid, the delinquencies were paid up. With all of that interacting with each other, we had lower years in the prior years, and now we're returning up to a higher number. Also, valuations are returning to an upward increase in value, and we're going to see that with our triennial update, which is coming up. And just off of this Schedule A right now, we have $5.5 million in new construction and business property, and that's prior to all the new activity that we have now that's coming up, because this lags a year. So this is like on last year. Just like when you pay your taxes, you pay your tax bill, it's on last year's value, and then you pay it the new year. This is lagging. And then there's also $1.7 million in new construction on residential property. So with all of this interaction, and then the final amount is the collection rate has increased to 82%. Wow. And you know, that's with more people paying, items coming off of the coffers, you know, with those exemptions. One of those exemptions was a 12-year process. So that was affecting our collection rate because it was just sitting there and they weren't going to pay because they knew they were going to eventually win the case or they were going to keep appealing until they won. So that came off. So we have collection rate is starting to return to more of a realistic collection rate for us. Now, Mr. Jolly and I saw this as low as 67%. 7%. So we're starting to move in the right direction. So good news on real estate tax. And then there should be one more slide. Wonder why it's shutting off.
Yeah, on your thing, that was the last slide.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
The last real estate revenue that we have.
Well, anyways, I'll do it from memory. The last update that I wanted to present to you was a reminder on the article that I wrote in the Roar report. First of all, and this is the fiscal health of the district. And we put a little pun on the title. I don't know if anybody saw the article. It says doctor's orders. You know, you should go for a fiscal checkup just like we do for with our health. Right. But number one, we're entering our 8th year of spending within our financial resources. In other words, our expenditures are less, current expenditures are less than current revenue. And that's what allows us to develop a carryover fund balance. And it eliminates the need for any new tax levies. So we're entering our 8th year on that. Number two, Mr. Jolly and the treasurer and Dr. Rock, myself, are working strategically to plan for any future deficits that we see to try to eliminate those or delay those out as far as possible, which is looking good, especially with that windfall on real estate taxes. That's going to help us now. You know, so we're keeping tabs on when that deficit spending starts. And now we're just talking about current deficit spending, so if you had a year where you spent more than what resources came in, that's going to spend down the carryover balance. But it could be spent down very fast, so we're working on that. And then also number two, again, we financed the phase 1 with all district funds and not going to the taxpayers. No tax increase. And we're working on phase 2 to also be strategic for the school district. And in the end, to have new buildings for the whole school district from K to 12. you know, that is on the horizon. So, sorry that slide wasn't in there, but that's what was on that slide. And then that completes my update.
Thank you, Dr. Rock. At this time, Board, I would need a motion for the consent treasurer's report and financial recommendations 2.1 through 2.3. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board approve.
Oh, wait a minute. Can we separate 2.3 since he didn't talk about 2.3? Were you gonna talk about 2.3?
Cash recommendation.
Sure. 2.3 is a super blanket purchase order to cover us for the rest of the year on Choice One Communications. And that's also through the business affairs, and David Boyer can provide further details on that if needed. Anything else?
So are you saying that we're running $16,000 a month on telecommunications and the voicemail?
Yes. Isn't that correct?
Yes, actually, it's about $16,600 a month. And so we need enough to cover us March, April, May.
Through June 30th?
I have a motion on the floor to accept the consent treasurer's report and financial recommendation 2.1 through 2.3. A motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board approve by consent agenda treasurer's report and financial recommendations, items 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Any other questions about that section? Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Elba?
Yes.
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes. Motion carries. Next on our board agenda is the consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for board action. Administrative staff, I'm looking for a motion for items 3.1 through 3.19. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board, excuse me, approve by consent agenda item number 3, superintendent's recommendation and presentation for board action administrative staff, items 3.1 through 3.9.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Jolly, would you like to address that?
Yes, I'd like to speak on 3.1, the administrative salary schedule. There was a question.
Excuse me, Mr. Jolly.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's more than 3.9. It goes 3.19, I'm sorry, 3.19, please forgive me.
That's all right.
Yes, I wanted to speak on the administrative salary schedule. We had to make an adjustment because we had some new categories and we had some people that were moving beyond that. I do want to say to the board that we have made revisions to the administrative salary schedule to make our salaries more competitive with other districts in the area, and that we were waiting on the OPC contract to be completed, all our contracts to be completed before we brought it to the board. So 3.1, we will be bringing back a recommendation once the OPC contract is completed.
So there's an addition to the salary schedule.
Yes.
So then that has to be a separate vote because the salary schedule has to be separate from the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is going beyond what was already board approved.
Yeah, that's why we put it as 3.1.
Okay.
So 3.1, she's correct. 3.1 has to be approved because under the current salary schedule, some of these areas are not on there, like social worker. We had to build the social worker out and high school principal.
So I guess I'm sorry, I'm just not understanding, how come we can't do it as a consent agenda? I don't understand.
Are you having
You have
a
to-
different contract coming for OPC?
You asked him, him.
No, so the OPC contract is, we're in negotiations with them in May.
Right, right.
So once we complete that, we'll come back with a new administrative salary schedule. I think the question on the floor from Ms. Gator is, and Mr. Freeman, if you could, or Vice President Mitchell, Ms. Gator's question, if I'm correct, is do we have to approve the administrative salary schedule first before the others? Or can we just do it all in one swoop?
Yeah, we can still do it as a consent agenda.
Right.
But I think what I was hearing is, and maybe I'm wrong, Member Elba was saying that we have to pull 3.1 out and do it separate?
Yeah, I think her understanding is that you have to approve that schedule first, and then it'll encompass all the other ones that's impacted by the revised schedule.
Did council say that we have to do it different?
We didn't have to ask them to do that.
Our counsel is here. I mean,
Oh,
she's sitting right
she
there.
sure is.
Come on down, Donna Andrews, Pebble and Wagner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In this instance, I would agree with Member Elba that the administrative salary schedule should be approved before the administrative contracts,
That's fine.
which would have salaries in them, would be approved. So that is the order that it should occur.
Oh, so we're doing 3.1.
Yeah, we'll do it.
By
I'll
itself.
retract that motion.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to retract that motion that I just made from 3.1 to 3.19 and actually call a new motion, the consent superintendent recommendation and presentation for board action administrative staff. The only actual item is 3.1, administrative salary schedule. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that this board approve item 3.1, administrative salary, under the consent superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board actions and administrative staff.
Do I have a second? Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Mewman. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. I need a motion for the consent superintendent recommendation and presentation for board action administrative staff 3.2 to 3.19. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board actions administrative staff, items 3.2 through 3.19.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Is there any questions on those items from 3.2 to 3.19, Board?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
So, Mr. Jolly, we have the C-tag on here again. Where's the data to show that it was successful this year for this to go into next year?
I will forward to the board. I did receive the report from Case Western Reserve. I thought I forwarded it to the board.
You did.
Yeah, we had it.
Yeah, I'll forward it. So I'll re-forward it to the board. But Case Western Reserve did provide us a report that indicated that our program was exceeding others. I will forward that to you immediately.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions, Board? Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Next on our board agenda is the consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for board action certified staff. I'm looking for a motion from 4.1 to 4.4. Board, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board action certified staff, items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Board, is there any questions on those items 4.1 through 4.4?
Mr. Jolly, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
First question is, for your summer school, if there's not enough students to support all this staff, will there be, people be told ahead of time?
Yes, so historically, if the numbers don't run, we will reduce staff. Pretty much, we anticipate our especially in our pre-K to 3 people come, and also the high school credit recovery, and children are paying for that. So yeah, we will look at the staff. If it's not enough to run it, then we will send people home.
Supplemental coach, is that for girls?
That's girls' assistant track.
That's all I have.
Is there any other questions in that section? Board?
Also, she's a teacher in the building for the board.
Thank you. At this time, Treasurer Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Next on our board agenda is Section 5, Consent Superintendent's Recommendation and Presentation for Board Action, Classified Staff. I'm looking for a motion for 5.1 and 5.2. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for for board action classified staff, items 5.1 and 5.2.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Board, the floor is open. Any of those items in the section 5, 5.1, or 5.2? Is there any questions, concerns? Hearing none, Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Next on our board agenda is item 6, Superintendent Recommendation and Presentation for Personnel and Programs. We're looking at a resolution at 6.1 that would need to be read for Resource Officer, and a motion.
So are we gonna discuss this before we start reading this resolution?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on it.
Yeah, we can, that's fine. Superintendent Jolly?
So I'd like to give just an overview of that. I did meet with the mayor, with Mr. Boyer, and Mayor Sellers committed to having a conversation with the district about a resource officer. This resolution simply gives us the authority to negotiate the parameters of getting a school resource officer with the mayor.
So, guess I got a couple questions. Tell me the difference between this resource officer and your security supervisor, and why did we just target Warrensville when we are a Tri-City? Did we reach out to the other two as well, or is this just a Warrensville thing?
So all our schools sit inside of Warrensville Heights City School District. So they have the authority over all the schools in the district. So naturally, we will go to the city that has authority over all the schools. What was the first question? I'm sorry.
The difference between this and this?
So this would be an actual police officer. The difference is that our security chief is not authorized to carry a gun. It does not have the, it's not directly connected with the Warrensville Heights Police. He communicates with them, but he's not an officer in their department. All districts, not all districts, but a lot of districts, due to the violence that's going on in the communities, like to have uniformed officers in the school district. So this is our effort to put a uniform officer that's a current officer of Warrensville Heights City to be inside the schools. So this is just an authority to engage the city in conversations about bringing a school resource officer to the district. Any agreement will have to be approved by the board. I know that the mayor will be bringing it to his council very soon, also to get authority to speak to us also.
So he gonna just get the high school?
We haven't even got to the point of where it'll be located. I do know our conversation would be ultimately, once we complete our building project, that we will have one in both schools. Ultimately, that would be our goal. I don't think the city can afford to put one at 5 or anything like that, but our goal is to have one. And Ms. Elba, you can attest to this, there was a resource officer here before. Officer Calloway, I believe, was the school resource officer. That was assigned here in the mid-2000s. So we are moving back to that model, attempting to move back to that model.
Vice President Mitchell, can you read the resolution, please?
I, Tracy Mitchell, move the adoption of the following resolution, whereas a representative from the city of Warrensville Heights, Ohio City in the future contacted the superintendent of the Warrensville Heights City School District, also known as the district, to propose entering into an agreement with the city whereby the services of a school resources officer, or SRO, would be provided to the district. And whereas the Warrensville Heights City School District Board of Education, the board desires for the superintendent to enter into negotiations with the city in furtherance of establishing the terms for such an agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Warrensville Heights City School District, Warrensville Heights, Ohio, a majority of all members of the board elected thereto concurring that in section 1, the superintendent is authorized to enter into negotiations with representatives of the city of Warrensville Heights for the purpose of establishing a tentative agreement for the services of a school resource officer supplied by the city. Section 2, the superintendent shall present any such tentative agreement reached with the city to the board for final approval. 3, it is found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board in any of its committees that resulted in these formal actions were in compliance with the law.
Do I have a second? Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Newman. Also in that section, we do have two other items, 6.2, 6.3. So I'm gonna need a consent.
No, it has to be a separate vote.
You want it separate? I guess so. Well, okay. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll for 6.1?
Mrs. Moomin,
Newman.
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Motion carries 5-0. Do you need a motion for the consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for personnel and programs 6.2 and 6.3? Do I have a motion?
Separate 6-2,
For what?
because I want to separate it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought it was something, okay. Board, is that okay that we just do those two separate? Sure. Okay. I do need a consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for personnel and program for item 6.2 resolution. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board vote by consent agenda on item number 6.2, superintendent's recommendations and presentations for personnel and programs relative to the resolution, student suspension appeal, affirming suspension.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Is there any discussion?
So, Mr. Jolly, I have a question. Is this the same one related to the email about asking the board to meet? Is this the same one, or is this a different one?
I don't believe it is. Ms. Rudolph, are you familiar with this
We
one?
got an email, we got an email from a parent whose child was in the middle of that, and she
Yeah,
asked
just don't say no
the
names.
board.
Okay.
I'm not saying any
Okay,
names,
all right.
but she asked to be with the board, and we never replied back, which we need to. So I'm just wondering, is this the same one?
No, let me.
Miss,
Go ahead, sir.
Miss Rudolph had talked to that parent. Miss Rudolph, did you settle that case, or what? Okay. Did you send something to the board, or?
No.
Oh, okay. This resolution, is that pertaining to that? Oh, okay. Yes.
May I just clarify something for Member Elba? The way I took it is the parent was saying she wanted a hearing. She didn't say she wanted a meeting with the board, she wanted a hearing. So that's why we didn't take any action. The hearing still had to happen with, go through the
Pupil
proper
service.
protocol. So that's why it never came to us.
I
Right.
thought the email said she wanted to meet, so that's what I thought.
That's all right, no problem. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Elba,
No.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Motion carries 4-1. Next, I need a consent superintendent recommendation and presentation for personnel and programs. Item 6.3, camp intervention summer school. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board vote by consent agenda, superintendent's recommendations and presentations for personnel and programs for item 6.3, camp intervention summer school.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Newman. Any questions? Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Also, I want to thank Board Member Gator for actually putting that in the board's ear about resource officer. So I want to thank you. I know with the Parkland, Florida shooting, most districts are looking into resource officer, and I appreciate you bringing that to the board's attention.
No problem. Thank you.
Next on our board agenda is item 7, district policies. I know Mr. Jolly and Treasurer Dr. Rock are going through that. Are we almost done with that?
Yes, we did forward some to the board. I think at the May 14th meeting, we'll be ready to discuss the board review and make the adjustments to the policies.
That would be our first reading as a board.
May I ask a question?
Go right ahead.
Those were the policies, though, that Joe from Neola came in and
That's right,
discussed with
36
us.
points.
Yeah, that was
So we
like
just
6
did it a little
of them.
different this time? Is that what we
He
did?
just did a summary.
Yeah, he did a summary. They were basically updates. There were a couple of things, and we just kept them consistent for what the board already had.
So just a recommendation, however the board pleases to do it is fine. I know that in the past, what we did is that we had your team to go ahead and take a look at what changes they wanted to make, and then Joe came in after you guys did it. So we did
He
it.
went before us this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So, yeah, that
I
would be
talked to him,
my-
his schedule, and I mean, I wanted him, and I know the board wanted, and he was
I didn't know that, well,
scheduled. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do it like that next time.
Thank you.
Better than me. Okay, so we're looking in May, and then next, number 8 items, unfinished business, board goals, community engagement. Vice President Mitchell.
Oh, I just want, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
We did make the updates from our last meeting, which is sitting in front of each of us. There was one question that I had, though. I want us to make sure that we're prepared to come to the May 14th meeting so that we can plan our June 2nd community engagement event. And then, Mr. Jolly, I just wanted to ensure that all the parent liaisons are, I know you sent the email, and thank you so much on the board's behalf for managing that, so they're aware of which board member has which building. If we can just make sure that we are in alignment with whatever other programs they have, so that we don't get. I don't think they can hear you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have much of a voice left. Just so that they can make sure we're not getting in the way of other programs that they may have.
Okay.
So we can work in collaboration with them. So board, if we come prepared at our next meeting to discuss what we want to do so we can build on agenda and how we want to communicate with our parent liaisons, the building administrators, as well as the community, to invite them in for this meeting. That was all I had, Mr. Chair.
Or did you have any discussion with the engagement? I know, Mr. Jolly, thank you for sending out the board members' building of choice. So I think the staff is knowing what board member will represent that school district. Any other items?
Just a comment, I guess, or maybe a question for the board. So we're going to come prepared to discuss it on May 14th.
Time limited.
Right. We also talked about possibly going out for donations for refreshments. So I have a copy of a letter that I've used in the past. I can tweak it. But typically, organizations prefer that you send those letters 30 days in advance. So I'd like to maybe forward it and get somebody to proof it, and if everybody is good with it, go ahead and maybe solicit a couple of different organizations. We were looking at doing like a brunch, so I was kind of thinking Panera's and Dunkin' Donuts. If anybody else has any suggestions, I'd be more than happy to reach out to them.
And this is going to be for
Sounds
the June
good.
event that you're doing?
For the June event, correct.
Any questions, board? I think that's good, Ms. Gator, if you can send that over.
I thought you already did it.
I didn't think she
You
did.
thought
I thought you had already.
She thought you already did.
Did it from the last month when we talked about it.
I said I was gonna tweak it, so I've got it tweaked, but I need
fine.
somebody to proof
You're
it.
fine.
Okay, just send it.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. There's no new business.
We still have some more unfinished business.
What is it?
Is it on the agenda?
It was in a sent in an email.
What was it? I'm sorry.
Talked about, I sent you guys in a thing about the lobbyists. Where are we at on that?
I thought he did it on your updates, but yeah. go
Yeah, I
ahead.
sent that in the update about the lobbyists. It was in the update I sent on Wednesday.
We need to talk about it here because
Okay.
that was the vote that we made here. So can you just say it again, please? Just a brief
Jesus,
synopsis of
Jesus.
the lobbyist update.
You want me to get an update?
Is that what you'd like, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Jolly, if you want, I mean, I know we all got it, but I mean, if you want to just say it for Ms. Elba to make her feel better,
Great.
go right ahead.
Well, I will say that the work of the lobbyists is very highly sensitive and it's highly sensitive. But I will say that the lobbyist is actively working on our behalf, speaking to various members of the Republican Party, and sharing our concerns. I don't want to get any more detail of who, what, where, and why, but the board is updated on exactly some of the specifics. But as you know, with lobbyists are people who build relationships with other people and attempt to try to get them to see things their way. So me giving up any more information, I think will hurt our efforts. But on an individual basis, I'll be willing to share. Any other comments?
I mean, that's fine, because it's not an executive session thing. We had to vote on that because we collaborated with several schools, so it's not like it's top secret information. We have to put it out here because at the end of the day, it was a voted.
I understand.
So that's why I'm asking about it. But I also want to know about these parent liaisons. We keep shuffling it from month to month to month. And that was one of the reasons that I asked for Dr. Rock for a list of all the titles and the funding. Is there a plan for the upcoming year for these parent liaisons to receive additional funding as well as additional hours? They're already working more than the little 9 hours that they're 9 or 10 or whatever it is that they're doing, but we're not compensating for them. I mean, we talk about how we applaud our staff for going above and beyond. Those are people who go above and beyond. They're our link to the community, but we're not showing our appreciation to them. That's my opinion. So because we have this type of money here sitting and we're talking to carryover and we're looking at, well, we see that it is going, part of the funds can go from that. Is there a plan to put in place for August or July for these liaisons?
So I would say that we received the 18-19 Title I budget.
No,
So, and I know you shared it with us various times. There are going to be cuts in the budget from the state. So that is something that once we receive the budget, then we will allocate. Our first priority, though, is to make sure that it's used on intervention, reading and math intervention. So that's our first priority. Second priority then would be class reduction. And then as we prioritize, it'll be as a priority. You brought it to our attention, but first we need to see the budget. This year, the budget, again, and the position that we're in, the money is all toward intervention. It has been designated toward intervention, lowering class sizes, providing targeted instruction for students. So I would say that once we receive the budget, that is something, you've mentioned it, we would definitely take in consideration and make sure that if we have the necessary funds that we make the adjustments.
Because don't forget, Westwood is still out here with no liaison.
Yeah. And that was something we have to cover next year, Westwood. Yeah, we would. Westwood has to be covered.
Mr. Jolly, I just feel that I think that it should be the principal's recommendation if they feel that the liaison should be moved, or exactly what are they doing in their building to warrant an increase in pay. I think that should come from the different principals in the different schools.
And they do get evaluated. Yeah. Go ahead, Arnise. I want Arnise.
By the state.
There's data, please.
State.
Not like that data.
Say we're going to give them an increase, we have to get it approved by the state.
And there's a limitation on how much you could spend on that part of it.
That was one thing they looked at in the past and asked questions.
Is there any other questions?
I do have a question.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gator, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, following up on the Title I allocations. And just clarify, in the presentation that you did, that was the amount that was allocated, but we budgeted a certain amount of money already, right?
Exactly.
So-
The allocation is the total budget.
Okay.
But then within that budget, there's limitations. Like, the state will say, well, you could only spend so much on supplies. You could only spend so much on community engagement. You can only spend so much on salaries and benefits. There's limits for every one of those line items that we have to comply with.
And a couple of those budgets, if I'm not mistaken, don't we have to use up all of the money in some cases within the same school year?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so, just thought I would throw that out there for everyone.
Okay, next, Dr. Rock, do you have any correspondence?
No, sir.
I just do like to make some announcements. I know Superintendent Jolly did, but the Healthy Paws, along with YMCA and South Point, along with the Warrensville Heights City School District, and I want to thank the HR department, Tasha and Kenya. You did a great job on preparing this with them in collaboration. But that is actually this Saturday, and it starts at 8 a.m. at South Point. Also, on May 4th, and Superintendent mentioned it, we will have our Senior Scholar College and Career Signing by Principal Reynolds. That was a good idea to have those scholars who's going to college, and that will be May 4th, the Friday, from 10 to 12. May 10th, we will have the pre-K to 5th grade GPD. We'll be doing an update on that facilities. That will be in this room on May 10th. It's a Thursday, and that starts at 6:30 to just give all community partners and most of the educators have been working with them an update. On May 15th, Mr. Jolly mentioned, we will have an actual meeting. That's Tuesday with PMC management, along with Moody Nolan and Dr. Rock and maybe even Mike Purcella, to give some information on the levy and phase 2 on our middle school and high school. That will be May 15th. And May 16th will be our STEAM Fair. STEAM Fair will be held at the high school, and that starts at, I believe, 5 o'clock, and that's on the 16th. Also, the senior prom will be May 18th at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Beechwood. They will have the actual lineup in the dress up at 4:30 here at the high school, so that's May 18th. They will do the line starting at 4:30. Our actual graduation class of 2018 will partake in their graduation on May 21st here at the high school. I don't have a time yet, but it will be on the high school field. And then the last day of school will be May 24th. That will be the last day for the Warrensville Heights City School District. Also, Warrensville Heights Memorial Parade will be on the 28th. If board members are in town, would like to walk up, actually Warrensville Center Road, that starts at 9 a.m. on the 28th, and that's a Monday. And then summer school, I believe, starts at June 4th. June 4th?
Yeah, June.
Okay, and go right ahead, Mr. Jolly.
On May 26th, the Say Goodbye to Randallwood. I forgot to announce that. So that'll be the last day. Randallwood, we have a program planned. The program will consist of old principals speaking, old students speaking. There'll be the band. Also, there'll be a food truck there also, and music. So all of this will take place at the 26th in Randallwood's parking lot, or if it rains, in the gym. 11 to 1. Well, it'll start about 10:30. The music and everything will start at 10:30. The program will start at 11. The tours will begin at 12. The building's in bad shape, so the tour gonna be limited. It won't be long. It's in bad shape. I was in there last week. I mean, the ceiling is down in a lot of areas. Water has poured in. It's not. So we'll limit where people could go. But the gym and cafeteria area is available, and we'll probably get people in one of the pods to, just take a look at one of the pods. But it doesn't look like it did when we was there. So there's a lot of difference. The solariums are gone. It's a new building. But yeah, so that'll be on the 26th, and we invite everyone to come to say goodbye to Randallwood.
Also, I want to thank Dave Boyer and even Mr. Jolly for getting some of the old memorabilia and pictures of myself and Vice President Mitchell. We were the second class at Randallwood, 1974, and we did find some pictures, so that's a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Boyer.
And we're working with the Alumni Association to get more pictures because it's like periods of time that's missing, like large periods of time that's missing. So we want everybody's picture. So the Alumni Association is working to get some pictures downloaded so we got everybody's picture.
At this time, we are going into executive session. Everybody can leave if they like, but I need a motion to go in executive session and the reason why. Can I have a motion, board?
Mr. Chair, I move that this board move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official or regulated individual, students, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. We are in